What's that sound? It's For Amusement Only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast. Welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is sleepy Nick Baldridge. Tonight I wanted to start a little recap about the York show and the first ever Bingo Row. Now, as you can hear, my voice is a little different than normal, and that's because of all the shouting that I had to do to be able to be heard over the various show noise. All worth it, though. So, let's start off tonight by talking about Thursday. On Wednesday night, before the show, after work, I went and picked up the rental truck. It was a 16-foot Penske truck. In the back of this, I and a couple of my buddies and my neighbor came over and loaded up all 5 of my bingos. We also loaded the Gottlieb GG that I had and strapped them in along with a lift that Steve let me borrow that would raise up pretty much to the level of the end of the truck, the gate of the truck. So that makes it considerably easier to move the bingo heads, which are very, very heavy, in and out of the truck. So all that was blanketed and strapped, and the back glasses were facing outwards, away from the wall. The cabinet playfield glass was facing outwards, away from the wall. And this will come into play a little later. But I did not have the heads face to face, as all of my heads were pretty much different sizes, except for Nightclub and Gaytime. And Nightclub had the glued glass, and I was worried that it was going to come apart, and I didn't want it to damage the Gaytime. So that's why I had all the glass facing outwards. Well, I went to bed about 11 o'clock, got up sometime between 3 and 4, took a shower, packed, all that stuff, and hopped in the truck, at 5 a.m. and drove the 3.5, 4 hours, somewhere in that neighborhood, to Abbottstown. Abbottstown is outside of York, and by about a half an hour. And there I met up with a local collector named Jim. Now, Jim bought his first bingo at the last York show from Jeffrey Lawton. He bought a roller derby. And roller derby is an okay game, a magic screen. Since that time, he'd bought like 10 or 12 different bingos, and I'd been helping him throughout the year attempt to get these going, and I'd got him all hyped up about the show and what we were going to do. And because he lived so close, I offered to come and work on his machines, get him show ready, then help him load, and do the same in reverse. Well, I got there and took a look at, he had a Dixieland and a Nashville. Dixieland and Nashville both really needed to be shopped. They were just dirty. On top of that, Dixieland had been converted to a single coin. Now, when they did this, instead of replacing the back glass, they actually left the Dixieland back glass in and taped over the word Dixieland with a sticker that said single coin. So that's pretty easy to reverse. Inside, they had disabled and tied together various relays in interesting ways to always award features, disable the magic number from showing you the little spin as it spots, and certain other things. I reversed the hacks that I could in order to get this thing going, and then found out that on card number 4, there was an issue because the second search disk, which releases and allows for searching on cards 4, 5, and 6, would get mechanically stuck at a certain position. And so if you had a winner, it would get stuck at that position and just continue to pay out forever. And that's because the disc would not rotate. So there's some kind of mechanical or physical problem with that particular portion of his game, and we didn't have time to, disassemble and clean all of that right then. So we moved on to the next one. We just called that a lost cause. The next one was a Nashville. Now, Nashville also had a whole lot of hackage going on, and I was able to reverse the vast majority of it. That said, a good portion of the control unit had been rewired, and that always makes me nervous. I did fix a couple of issues and played through a game, got it to score appropriately on several different cards, and fixed various minor issues, and said, okay, let's bundle that one up and we'll take that one. He had a Miss Universe that was fully working, and so we took that one too. And then took a look at his roller derby. Now, roller derby, he had brought it home and just played the heck out of it. And one day, the magic screen jumped the track. Now, I believe what happened is his left button got stuck. And so the screen tried to back up and hadn't figured out it was at the end because it had jumped the track. And so it ended up burning up the magic screen release coil. Now, I didn't know any of that, but what I did know is that the screen was on the track, but it didn't realize what position it was in. Well, what this means is that you have to retime the magic screen unit. So I went ahead and lined that all up, disassembled the thing, and then lined that all up, reassembled it, tested, and it worked eventually. I had to try it 2 or 3 times. Didn't have the manual there and had to go off of memory, which is always tricky. So got that going and got it scoring, more importantly, in the default position. Got the Magic Screen Award, and the screen didn't move. And that's because the coil was burned down. There's a central coil which releases a latch that prevents the Magic Screen motor from actually moving the screen. Now, I could hear the motor turning and knew everything was good there. So it's just the coil that needed to be replaced. Unfortunately, I didn't have any parts with me, and we didn't have any more time to mess with that. He didn't have a coil either, so we bundled that one up, and I suggested that he might be able to buy one from Jeffrey Lawden at the show, and if not, he could buy one later on once he referenced the part in the manual. So we moved on from there, and he had a variety of bingos which were folded up and not really workable. He had a Spotum, which has another mechanical problem where the motor gets physically bound after a certain amount of turning, and that needs to be disassembled and fixed. So that one was out. Then we took a look at... I forgot to mention, he has a couple of Keeney bingos. Keeney only made a small number of bingo games. They were into coin-op amusements, but they didn't make many pin games. And out of those, they made, very few bingos. Now, the bingos that they did make were primarily 6-card, from what I understand. And the cabinets that they used were really cool, very 1950s looking. When you see them, they have the long legs like a Shuffle Alley or like a Williams game with the step. So they're, interesting cabinets. Inside, mechanically, they're very similar to a Bally. They're a little simpler, actually, than a Bally. But they have 3 buttons on the foot rail. Now, he was missing the foot rail for both of the machines that he had. One of which had a coil which had caught fire and had burned some of the wiring. The other one worked pretty well, but it had been converted to single coin, and whenever they do that, they hack up the wiring and do funky things, and this was no exception. Now, unfortunately, schematics, manuals, and parts for these games are really hard to find. Now, luckily for Jim, he had, I believe, the schematic and manual for this game. So I told him, we can get that going, but not for the show. So those were shelved, and then we came to the crown of his collection. The beautiful Silver Sails, which had never seen location play. This machine looked like it had just come out of the box. It was the newest bingo I've ever had the pleasure of seeing. All the woodwork looked brand new. The cabinet paint was beautiful, textured. The playfield still had, a couple of rough spots in the holes where they were routed out. All of that is worn away by hours and hours and hours of play. So this was quite a treat. And the only problem he was having was that the machine would go into tilt. And I suggested that it could be one of a couple different things. And because the machine had sat for so long, it could have been one of the tilts had become dirty, or managed to move and was touching when it shouldn't, or as I suggested, it could be that he was holding the coin switch down too far when he was testing it, caused it to fail. Well, it turned out to be the latter, and there's an anti-cheat switch which is located on the control unit in later bingos, which prevents you from just holding a nickel on the coin switch and getting an advance in odds or features. And this was activating because of dirt and age. It was just too close to the switch stack on the control unit. So I bent it up a little bit and it was better. And then got it to the show, put it on free play, and it was fine. and that game saw a lot of play. And for good reason. I mean, it was most people's only chance to play what was essentially a new bingo. It's very cool. And I'm very grateful that he allowed us to bring that. So, Jim and I got the Nashville, the Miss Universe, and the Silver Sails loaded. And we put 2 in my truck and 1 in his pickup. And then we drove to the show. Now, we got there about 4 p.m., somewhere in that neighborhood. And I started unloading. And Jeffrey Lawton was there, along with his son, and Steve Smith, myself. And between us, we got all the games unloaded and set up inside the hall right as the hall closed at 8 p.m. So, again, I had only gotten a couple hours of sleep the night before, and went hard all day. There was an issue at work somewhere in the middle there that I had to correct remotely, and everything worked out though. I mean, it was amazing, and everybody definitely contributed to that success of the setup day. So that was exciting. All the machines survived the move, no problem. Got them all set up and turned on. Everything worked. Got them all strapped for free play, the ones that I had not previously done. And then found out that there was a listener who had a friend who brought a big time. This is the last Magic Lines bingo that Bally produced. So the big time was in the row. There was a circus queen in the row that was brought by Pete from Maryland. And there was a bikini, which was brought by a guy who sells the pins. So, and those were all in the bingo row on that first day. It's really cool. So I was pretty excited. So the game titles we had were Big Time, Bikini, Nashville, Miss Universe, Silver Sails, Golden Gate from Steve Smith, Bounty, Double Up, Ticker Tape, Nightclub, Gay Time, and Circus Queen. So I was pretty pleased with the turnout there. There were 12. The bikini needed some work. The guy who brought it didn't work on EMs. And I told him I'd take a look. He initially wanted to just put it in the flea market, but I suggested I could take a look and see what I could do with no guarantee that I could get it working. So I didn't have a chance to look at it on Thursday night. But that leads us to the next day. So that's all for tonight. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can reach me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com, or you can call me on the Bingos line. That's 724-BINGOS1, 724-246-4671. You can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, via RSS, on Facebook, on Twitter @Bingo Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram @nbaldridge. Or you can listen to us on our website, which is foramusementonly.libsyn.com. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.